Chapter 16. True Stories of Lives Changed Using Psycho-Cybernetics. The Case of the Least Likely to Succeed Stockbroker. Sella Quinn was born with a gift, an advantage, far above average intelligence. She is a Mensa member, an association of people with IQs in the top 2% of the population. But this gift was of little use to her for quite some time, thanks to her other birth disadvantages. She was born with a severe cleft lip and palate, a birth defect that is a split in the roof of her mouth and the upper lip, and that produces mangled speech. It is often accompanied by a deformed nose. Sella described hers as looking like a Quonset hut with one corner of the roof collapsed. The crude, minimal surgery of the time did not help her speech. Her speech was so unintelligible to many she carried a pad and pencil with her to communicate with. Her jaw, face, and teeth often ached. Sella had a very difficult time in school. Other children picked on her, and even teachers presumed her stupid. When you can't speak, Sella said, people think you are stupid. My family, teachers, and other children thought so, and even I started to believe it. She was 16 when she left home, catching a bus to the nearest big city with $44 in her pocket. She had no plan, no idea where she was going. She only knew she had to escape where she was. She got a dishwasher job at a drugstore lunch counter. She was able to rent a basement room from a black woman who worked as a prostitute. This woman encouraged Sella to improve herself, to continue her education, and to push to do something with her life. In conversations, Sella learned that the woman owned real estate and even invested in stocks, something that both surprised her and motivated her. A dentist who stopped for coffee each morning at the Walgreens lunch counter got a note passed to him one morning from Sella. It read, "My teeth hurt so much. I can only pay you $5 a month. Will you help me?" The dentist arranged for her to receive surgeries and subsequent dental care at a total cost of over $3,000. Sella remembers bursting into tears over the sum. However, she worked at multiple jobs, paid those bills, paid to attend business school to become a secretary, and saved up to pay for plastic surgery for her nose. Then she worked her way through the University of Nebraska, obtaining a degree in journalism after 12 years. For the next 7 years, she worked in Lincoln, Nebraska as a reporter. An ad for a trainee for Merrill Lynch intrigued her. She soon began a career with Merrill Lynch. Somewhat to her surprise, she did well, and after 7 years, she was recruited by Smith Barney and made a vice president. Sella Quinn went on to achieve truly extraordinary success as a stockbroker, investment advisor, ultimately as president of her own investment firm. Her personal lifestyle has mirrored that of the rich and famous, complete with a mansion and a swimming pool in its living room, luxury automobiles, civic leadership, and security. How did this woman manage to persevere through so many disadvantages and hardships to achieve such success? She says her conversion was never easy. "My self-image was terrible, but due to a combination of necessity and an occasional push from someone else, and gradually discovering abilities, I moved ahead." Early in her selling career, she consulted a psychiatrist to improve her self-esteem. He told her she was not stupid as she believed. In fact, to the contrary, she was extremely intelligent, and he urged her to take the Mensa examination, and she passed. She discovered the original edition of this book while still working at Walgreens, and says it was pivotal in getting her to pursue and obtain plastic surgery. She also credits the book with giving her the courage to seek therapy. Finally, she began to understand that she need not be held back by any of her childhood traumas, and that she could take pride and confidence from the progress she had made. Dr. Maltz's ideas made it possible for me to go from an 88-cent an hour dishwasher to owning my own investment firm, says Seligquin. Regardless of the impetus, the important point is that Seligquin tested the truths about herself and discovered they were not true at all. Be inspired by this example and test every believed but limiting truth in your self-image's inventory. You too may very well discover some of the most inhibiting are not true at all. The case of Professors F. I was flunking out of college and contemplating suicide when I first read Psycho-Cybernetics, and it literally turned my life around. That dramatic statement comes from a college professor, professional speaker, author, and successful businessman, Marshall Reddick. Mr. Reddick says that at age 20, he was struggling just to stay in college and believed he lacked the intelligence necessary to make it to graduation, let alone to go further toward success in life. He was also painfully shy, a representation of his poor self-image and near total absence of self-confidence. After reading Psycho-Cybernetics, he began experimenting with some of its simplest, most basic prescriptions and techniques. I began to reprogram myself, he says. For example, I placed little notes all around me, in my pockets, on my mirror, in my car, reminding me that I was a confident person and a capable person. Sure enough, after just 21 days, I started to feel and behave differently. Marshall Reddick went on with a successful academic career, obtaining his bachelor's degree in business and economics, a master's degree in business from Colorado State University, his PhD in business from Texas Tech University, and a 3-year tenure as professor of business economics at California State University. I had all my students read and then write a report on Psycho-Cybernetics, Reddick says, and I still recommend the book to this day. Today, Mr. Reddick is a much in-demand professional speaker, has earned the Certified Speaker Professional designation from the National Speakers Association. His seminar company has been presenting programs on time management, negotiations, and peak performance for corporations worldwide since 1975. Isn't it remarkable that a failing student can metamorph into a stellar student, earn a PhD, step into the other side of the desk as professor from such simple techniques? Self-made multimillionaire W. Clement Stone has a favorite saying, "Little hinges swing big doors." It has many profound applications, and this is one of them. That frequently little tests of truths embedded in the self-image, little experiments in exercising new control over one's thoughts can swing open huge doorways to rapid and dramatic personal growth. Isn't it necessarily the size of the idea, but the size of the opportunity that governs the result? By experimenting with even some of the simplest of ideas found in Psycho-Cybernetics, you too may make amazing self-discoveries. The case of the alcoholic's daughter. I am a professional speaker. The other day, I was getting ready to leave my office to deliver a keynote address to a large association's luncheon. My eyes went to the bookcase in my office, where one book stands out from the others. Soft cover, tattered in pieces, used and worn. It takes me back to 1960. I was working my way through Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas, by being the Girl Friday for a prestigious law firm. The managing partner became my mentor. I know today that he saw the low self-esteem in that 19-year-old girl. In one of our meetings that year, he handed me a copy of Psycho-Cybernetics to read. If he said it was worthwhile, then it was, and I digested its contents every week. Maxwell Maltz offered me tools to re-engineer my thoughts and feelings about myself in ways that had never occurred to me. For the first 16 years of my life, my father was a troubleshooter for a huge manufacturing company, and they must have had a lot of troubles because we moved every year, sometimes twice in the same year, coast to coast and back again, 17 schools in 12 years. On weekends, after traveling all week, my dad came home and crawled into a bottle. My mom was rarely able to leave the house, and as the eldest of 4 children, I became her legs. I was the one who got the utilities connected each time we moved, got bills paid, groceries purchased. Yet, in her eyes, I never quite did anything well enough. With this as background, I was attempting to function effectively in the world of work, struggling obviously enough that my employer handed me this book about the self-image. For the first year I was given Psycho-Cybernetics, I read it 5 times. Over the next 5 years, I reread it several times each year. Maxwell Maltz became my encourager. He not only opened the door to a new way of living for me, but he birthed a lifelong interest in mind-body studies that directed my career and brought me a lifetime of fulfillment. Today, I speak to audiences all over the country on issues of self-esteem and communication. I know firsthand that we cannot connect with others until we connect with ourselves. Peggy Collins traveled from law firm clerk to top producer in real estate selling to senior vice president of a banking institution before embarking on her current career as a professional speaker and workshop leader with an impressive corporate client list, including Mobil Oil, Frito-Lay, Burger King, and the J.C. Penney Corporation. Her story reinforces the important fact that it is a well-known fact that children of alcoholics face significant and special problems. But depending on your definition of dysfunctional family, nearly everyone has one. Each person must rise above childhood experiences or adverse adult experiences to take control of his or her own personality, beginning now and moving forward. One of American business's favorite speakers, Joel Weldon, gave a speech for many years titled, "Jet pilots don't use rearview mirrors." We must all stop looking in our rearview mirrors and focus on the present moment and the future. The case of the rodeo cowboys. When Doug Butler agreed to take the reins as coach of the Cal Poly Pomona rodeo team in fall of 1989, they occupied last place in the western region of the National Intercollegiate Rodeo Association. One of the students in Doug's horseshoeing class, a top rodeo cowboy, stuck on this last place team, urged Doug to step in as coach, insisting that the team had more ability than they were demonstrating. I had recently read Dr. Maltz's Psycho-Cybernetics. I was impressed by it and working to apply its methods in my life. I felt the methods could be used to coach rodeo athletes, although I had never heard of the techniques being used for that practice. Doug Butler recalled. Later I discovered that Gary LeFew was using these methods to coach students in his bull riding school, but at the time I thought I was breaking new ground. Doug developed a plan for turning the team around, including new rules, training disciplines, a code of behavior for the athletes, and use of Psycho-Cybernetics as a text for personal improvement. The director of the university's animal science department a former professional hockey player, agreed to support the plan. Doug then met with the rodeo team members and made it clear he would not accept the coaching responsibilities unless they would agree to all of his conditions. The rules included no alcohol, no tobacco, no drug use, good grades, even a well-groomed appearance, and participation in a rigorous practice schedule at the college rodeo arena 2 days a week, supplemented by daily mental practice. Doug led an aggressive program of physical and mental conditioning. 3 days a week we worked out at the gym starting at 6:30 a.m. We used weight training machines, did calisthenics, and ran wind sprints. As we cooled down, we would discuss insights from our study of Psycho-Cybernetics. Everybody had a copy of the book and read it and reread it. Each team member would practice visualizing his own champion performance and would share their detailed descriptions of these imagined experiences with each other. By late spring of 1970, the team had moved from the basement to the second place in the division, behind a team that featured a future six-time world champion cowboy. As the team's image, performance, and record improved, rodeo athlete scholarships became available for students for the very first time. The students presented me with an engraved silver belt buckle and a standing ovation at the year-end banquet. I still wear the buckle and will always treasure the great Psycho-Cybernetics experience we shared. And every one of these team members have gone on to become successful in their chosen professions. Doug Butler has his PhD from Cornell University in veterinary anatomy and equine nutrition, is one of only 500 certified journeyman farriers, was 3 times a member of the North American horseshoeing team, and is the author of over 30 books and tapes on horseshoeing and horsefoot care. In 1980, he won the North American Challenge Cup horseshoeing contest. In 1997, he was inducted into the International Horseshoeing Hall of Fame. And in 1999, he won the Journalism Award from the American Farriers Association. Today, Doug conducts classes teaching blacksmiths to apply visualization techniques to be more efficient and competent craftsmen. He speaks to business groups, associations, and corporate audiences on the cowboy code, dealing with character, leadership, and self-mastery. He says that his continued use of the techniques of Psycho-Cybernetics has steered him towards successful accomplishment of every goal. As you can see, it doesn't matter what your occupation or vocation is. Even rodeo rider, the principles, concepts, and techniques of Psycho-Cybernetics are reliable tools for achieving peak performance. Also, as the story of Doug's team illustrates, it doesn't matter what your starting point may be, even if, like his team, you are in last place, in disarray, absent focus, self-discipline, or self-confidence. All that can change at your own determination. No collection of circumstances founded on past experience need remain in your control of your present or your future. The case of the woman who could not walk. Dear Mr. Maltz, please let me express to you my feelings of gratitude for your book, Psycho-Cybernetics. So began a letter, much like thousands of others received in Dr. Maltz's office over the years. However, this letter went on to describe a truly amazing story. What I'm about to share with you is very personal and charged with emotion. When I think of how one paperback book has changed my whole life, is it any wonder? I want to tell you my story, hoping it may help others. My life began in Providence, Kentucky on October 1st, 1924, as a healthy, normal, 9-pound baby girl. I was stricken with muscular dystrophy at age 10. I recall overhearing the doctor telling my parents that they might as well take me out of school as I had less than 1 year to live. This etched fear in me. Gradual changes took place in my motor abilities. I began to stumble. Soon it became difficult to walk. Then I began to experience great difficulty using my hands. With loving and understanding, I began a journey that would span 20 years trying to cope with this progressive disease, this shadow of doom, MD. Many summers were spent in hospitals, in body casts, in therapy. Finally, specially built shoes with steel braces were attached, provided to help me walk. My whole body was showing signs of weakness. Tasks that were so simple for others were great frustrations for me. Still, in spite of numerous obstacles, I managed to complete my education, which included college. Then came 13 years teaching school. At the age of 25, I was told I must undergo an operation on both ankles or risk spending the remainder of my life in a wheelchair. After suffering those operations, almost a year of confinement in casts and a wheelchair, I had to learn to walk again. It was months before I could stand for periods of time, several years before I was able to return to work. Even though, for the most part, the operations were a success, mental scars remain, and they became a greater handicap to me than did my physical disabilities. I lacked self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-reliance. I seemed to have lost a sense of direction and a purpose in living. We will interrupt only for a moment to make this important point. It does not matter how or by what series of events a person loses the purpose for living, and with it self-esteem and self-confidence. It happens to tens of thousands of people, thousands of different ways. It certainly does not require severe physical handicaps or trauma to wind up in this very same emotional state. However, the pathway out of this darkness into the light is the same, regardless of what brought on the darkness in the first place. The letter continues. Well-meaning friends and my family tried to help me. Inspirational booklets, books, and a desperate search into all types of philosophy filled every waking moment. I investigated everything from Buddhism to transcendental meditation. I even delved into some of the ancient Vedas. One day, while browsing a bookstore, my eye caught sight of a book titled Psycho-Cybernetics. This title aroused my curiosity. I was told by the clerk in the store that she simply couldn't keep enough copies on hand, that it was one of the best-selling books in her store. That was all I needed to hear. I bought a copy and found that I couldn't lay it down. For the first time in my life, I began to gain an insight into my own behavior. When I finished the book, I decided that someday I would meet the author. I didn't know how this meeting would come about, but I knew I must have the opportunity to tell Dr. Maltz of my appreciation. Over the years, Psycho-Cybernetics has served as an action manual for me. My attitude has changed from the negative to a winning feeling. What now appears to be a miracle to others is simply my working to change my own self-image. I've become somewhat of a medical phenomenon. Every doctor that has examined me has said that I do not have the physical muscle ability to walk. From a medical standpoint, There seems to be no logical explanation for the fact that I do walk. I was recently named Handicapped Professional Woman of the Year at the District 4 Pilot International Convention. The award is jointly sponsored by Pilot and the President's Committee on Employment for the Handicapped. I have just been appointed to Governor Askew's Subcommittee on Information and Press Relations on Employment of the Handicapped here in Florida. Through my work in television, I have had the good fortune and pleasure of working with many well-known personalities. Among the notables was you, Dr. Maltz. I've come to know what it is to live a full, fulfilling, useful, and happy life. Jean Sanders. Jean and her husband Peter became good friends of Max and Ann Maltz. About her, Dr. Maltz once wrote, "Sooner or later in life, every person must face catastrophe. Each person then chooses to rise above it, no matter how Herculean the effort required, or to succumb to it." How can Jean Sanders walk and drive a car without the muscle capability and strength required to do so, according to all medical experts? Because of the muscle strength of her self-image, which can not be so readily seen or medically evaluated. It was significant that Jean Sanders noted that she used Psycho-Cybernetics as an action manual. Unlike philosophical writings, and unlike scores of other self-improvement books, Psycho-Cybernetics emphasizes things to do, not just things to think. This is important because it is the constructive doing that yields results. Dr. Maltz frequently told a story about a man who spent hours each and every day in privacy in a quiet room, eyes closed, meticulously visualizing such events as winning the lottery or being made chief executive officer of a giant corporation, and then captaining affairs from his plush penthouse office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking all of Manhattan, or enjoying a honeymoon with a beautiful woman on a sunny tropical beach. This man engaged in these visualizations day after day, month after month, for a number of years before finally giving up in disgust, proclaiming to anyone who would listen that all this self-help mumbo-jumbo was bunk. The problem was this fellow never once purchased a lottery ticket, applied for a better position, or asked a young woman out to dinner. Psycho-Cybernetics can be of little value if only read, then relegated to a bookshelf. But if used with purpose and direction and determination, as Jean Sanders did, it can liberate you to live a most fulfilling life.